The real story behind China's Great Wall. Darker than you think. Imagine a wall so massive it stretches over 13,000 miles across mountains, deserts, and valleys. A wall so large it took over 2,000 years to build. A wall constructed by millions of workers, many of whom were worked so hard, so brutally, that they died on the spot and were buried directly inside the wall itself. The Great Wall of China is the largest man-made structure in human history. Every year, millions of tourists walk its ancient stones, take photographs, and marvel at its sheer scale. But almost none of them know the real story behind it. The truth is far darker, far more fascinating, and far more shocking than any guidebook will ever tell you. Because the Great Wall of China was not just a wall. It was a monument to one of the most brutal, most ambitious, and most desperate acts of power in all of human history. Today on Ancient Files, we uncover the complete real story behind the Great Wall of China. And what we found will change how you see it forever. To understand the Great Wall, we need to go back to ancient China, a land of constant warfare, rival kingdoms, and one of the most violent periods in human history. For over 500 years, from roughly 475 BC to 221 BC, China was torn apart by what historians call the Warring States period. 7 powerful kingdoms constantly fighting each other for control of the country. During this chaotic time, individual kingdoms began building walls along their borders, not to keep out foreign invaders, but to protect themselves from each other. These early walls were made of packed earth, wood, and stone, crude by later standards, but effective enough to slow down enemy armies. Then in 221 BC, something extraordinary happened. A ruthless, brilliant, and deeply feared king named Ying Zheng finally conquered all 7 warring kingdoms and unified China for the very first time in history. He gave himself a new title, Qin Shi Huang, meaning First Emperor of China. And he immediately set about building something that would make all previous walls look like children's toys. Qin Shi Huang ordered his greatest general, Ming, to connect all the existing border walls into one massive, unified structure, and extend it further than anyone had ever imagined. He gave Meng Tian 300,000 soldiers to begin the work. But soldiers alone were not enough, so the emperor did something that would define his reign. He conscripted hundreds of thousands of ordinary Chinese citizens and forced them to build his wall, whether they wanted to or not. The scale of the Great Wall project was almost impossible to comprehend. At its peak construction, over 1 million workers were laboring on the wall simultaneously. These were not volunteers. They were conscripted farmers, convicted criminals, political prisoners, and enslaved peoples, all forced to work in some of the harshest terrain and most brutal conditions imaginable. Workers built through freezing mountain winters and scorching desert summers. They carried massive stone blocks up near vertical mountain slopes with no machinery, only ropes, wooden sleds, and their own bodies. They worked from sunrise to sunset with barely enough food to survive. Those who collapsed from exhaustion were given a simple choice: get up and keep working, or be beaten until they did. The death toll was staggering. Historians estimate that between 400,000 and 1 million workers died during the construction of the Great Wall over its 2,000-year building history. Ancient Chinese texts describe workers dying so frequently that their bodies were simply incorporated directly into the wall itself, used as fill material between the stones. The Great Wall of China may literally contain the bones of hundreds of thousands of human beings. In fact, ancient Chinese people had a name for the Great Wall. They called it the longest cemetery on Earth. Think about that the next time you see a tourist smiling for a photograph on its ancient stones. But the human cost of the Great Wall is just one of its dark secrets. Here are facts about the Great Wall that almost nobody talks about. Secret number 1. The Great Wall mostly failed at its main purpose. The wall was built primarily to keep out the Xiongnu, the fierce nomadic warriors of the northern steppes who had been raiding Chinese settlements for centuries. But history shows that the wall was breached, bypassed, and conquered multiple times. The Mongols under Genghis Khan simply went around it. In 1644, the wall was not defeated by force. A Chinese general actually opened the gates himself and let the Manchu army through, ending the Ming Dynasty. The greatest defensive structure in human history was ultimately defeated not by military force, but by human betrayal. Secret number 2. The wall you see in photographs is not the original wall. The iconic Great Wall that tourists visit today, the beautifully restored stone and brick structure winding through misty mountains, was mostly built during the Ming Dynasty, between 1368 and 1644 AD. The original Qin Dynasty wall, built by the first emperor, was made of packed earth and has mostly crumbled into dust over the centuries. What we call the Great Wall today is actually the newest version of a structure that has been built, destroyed, and rebuilt dozens of times over 2,000 years. Secret number 3. The Great Wall is not actually one continuous wall. It is a complex network of multiple walls, fortresses, watchtowers, and barrier systems built by different dynasties over different centuries. If you laid all the walls ever built end to end, they would stretch over 13,000 miles, more than halfway around the Earth. And then there is perhaps the most famous myth about the Great Wall. One that has been repeated in textbooks, documentaries, and classrooms around the world for over a century. The claim that the Great Wall of China is visible from space with the naked eye. It is completely false. NASA has confirmed it. Multiple astronauts have confirmed it. The Great Wall is extraordinarily long, but it is only 15 to 30 feet wide. From space, that is like trying to see a single human hair from 2 miles away. It simply cannot be done with the naked eye. The myth persists because it is a perfect story, but it has no basis in fact whatsoever. Now let us talk about the man behind the wall, Qin Shi Huang himself, because the first emperor of China was one of the most extraordinary and terrifying rulers in all of human history. He unified China, standardized its currency, weights and measurements, and writing system. He built a network of roads and canals that connected his entire empire. He was, in many ways, the founder of modern China. But he was also a paranoid tyrant who burned books and buried scholars alive to suppress dissent. He spent his entire reign obsessively searching for the secret of immortality, drinking mercury potions that his alchemists convinced him would give him eternal life. The mercury slowly poisoned him, making him increasingly erratic and dangerous. The man who built the greatest wall in human history was simultaneously destroying himself from within, driven mad by the same ambition that had made him great. When Qin Shi Huang finally died in 210 BC, possibly from mercury poisoning, he was buried in the most spectacular tomb in Chinese history, surrounded by an army of 8,000 terracotta warriors, life-size clay soldiers meant to protect him in the afterlife. His tomb has never been fully excavated. Chinese archaeologists believe it contains rivers of liquid mercury, the same substance that killed him, flowing through an elaborate underground palace. To this day, the full secrets of his tomb remain hidden beneath the earth. Today, the Great Wall of China is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, one of the most visited tourist destinations on Earth. But every year, it is slowly disappearing. Erosion, tourism, and neglect have damaged or destroyed over 30% of the original Ming Dynasty wall. In some remote sections, locals have dismantled parts of it to use the bricks for building their own homes. The greatest structure ever built by human hands is quietly crumbling away. So what is the true legacy of the Great Wall of China? It is simultaneously one of humanity's greatest achievements and one of its greatest crimes. A monument to human ambition, engineering genius, and organizational power, built on a foundation of forced labor, suffering, and death. It protected China. It failed to protect China. It was built over 2,000 years by dozens of emperors. It was breached, bypassed, and betrayed. It contains the bones of the people who built it, and it is slowly returning to the earth from which it came. Perhaps that is the most honest thing we can say about the Great Wall of China. It is not just a wall. It is a mirror, a reflection of everything human beings are capable of, both the magnificent and the monstrous. What do you think? Was the Great Wall worth the human cost? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one. Subscribe to Ancient Files for a new documentary every week. Because history is always darker, stranger, and more fascinating than anything you were ever taught in school.